Welcome to one of 3 webinars for the Education Research and Development Centers Competition, CFDA number 84.305C. My name is Meredith Larson, and I'll be leading you through this webinar in which we'll go over the general requirements for your application for the Improving Teaching and Learning in Postsecondary Institutions Center, or the Postsecondary Center. In this webinar, I will provide an overview of IES, its research centers, and the R&D Centers. Then I will discuss the Postsecondary Center, followed by the next steps you should take. So who are we, and what do we do here at IES? As you probably know, the U.S. Department of Education, or ED, aims to promote student achievement and preparation. The Institute of Education Sciences, or IES, is the research branch of ED, as authorized by the Education Sciences Reform Act in 2002. We are nonpartisan, and we are charged with providing rigorous evidence to inform education practice and policy, and sharing this information with educators, parents, policymakers, researchers, and the public. The overall mission of IES is to describe the condition and progress of education in the United States, identify education practices that improve academic achievement and access to education opportunities, and evaluate the effectiveness of federal and other education programs. This graphic represents the organizational structure of IES. We are led by a director who receives advice and consultation from the National Board for Education Sciences. The board consists of 15 voting members who are appointed by the President and confirmed by the Senate. Our Science Office oversees the scientific peer review process for IES grant applications and IES reports. We also have 4 centers within IES. The National Center for Education Statistics is the primary federal entity for collecting and analyzing data related to education. Within NCES, you may be familiar with the National Assessment of Educational Progress, or NAEP assessment. Within NCES, you will also find many large national longitudinal data sets, including, for example, the Early Childhood Longitudinal Study. The National Center for Education Evaluation and Regional Assistance conducts unbiased, large-scale evaluations of education programs supported by federal funds, provides technical assistance, and supports the development and use of research and evaluation throughout the United States. In NCEE, you will find the What Works Clearinghouse, WWC, and the Regional Education Labs, RELs. The 2 centers that award grants are highlighted here in blue. The National Center for Education Research, referred to as NCER, and the National Center for Special Education Research, or NCSER, or NCER. The grant opportunities that we will be talking about today are managed through NCER. You will also notice here that the research centers are separate from the Science Office and Standards and Review staff, meaning that we program officers are not involved in the peer review process. This allows us to work closely with you, providing technical assistance to you on your applications. We will discuss more about that later in this webinar. NCER supports field-initiated, innovative solutions to improve education research. The end goal of such research is to support policymakers, practitioners, researchers, learners, and the public in their work. Thus, IES strives to support rigorous, relevant research, the dissemination of findings from education research, and the development of researchers prepared to conduct high-quality research and disseminate about it appropriately. We have separate requests for applications, or RFAs, for the research and training activities. Our largest competition, CFDA 84.305A, called 305A for short, covers the education research activities, whereas the competition we are discussing today, CFDA 84.305C, covers the Education Research and Development Centers. The R&D Centers are responsible for contributing to the solution of a specific education problem and generating new knowledge and theories relevant to the focus of the center. The centers are also responsible for providing national leadership within the center's topic by disseminating research and engaging in dialogue with researchers, practitioners, and policymakers. And finally, the centers are also responsible for conducting relatively rapid research and scholarship on supplemental questions that emerge within the center's topic area. This supplemental work will vary depending on the needs of the field and IES input. IES R&D Centers are cooperative agreements in which the institution that holds the grant and IES work together to ensure a successful project. This means that during the life of the center, IES will help provide input and guidance on the center's activities. And now for the main topic of today, the Postsecondary Center. The Postsecondary Center will examine instructional innovations for improving postsecondary student learning outcomes. In particular, the Postsecondary Center will examine instructional innovations that open or broad access institutions are or could be using to improve postsecondary student learning outcomes. Broadly speaking, the purpose of this center is to help improve teaching and learning at the postsecondary level. Postsecondary institutions from community colleges through research universities are innovating ways to help improve the classroom experience and to ensure that students are learning the skills and knowledge they will need to thrive. However, it is unclear what innovations work, for whom, and under what conditions. It is also unclear how to help improve the pipeline that connects basic research, developers, the market, and the institutions and practitioners that need the innovations. This center aims to address these gaps in knowledge and help improve the ability of all stakeholders to collaborate with and learn from one another and to perform their jobs better, whether that job is designing an innovation, choosing the appropriate innovation, or determining whether the innovation is having the desired outcome. Of particular concern to IES is addressing the needs of open and broad access institutions, which include community colleges and four-year institutions that accept at least 75% of applicants. IES is also concerned about the teaching and learning outcomes in credit-bearing courses. IES is also interested in learning about how institutions and/or instructors are leveraging technology to improve teaching and learning. Thus, the center could consider focusing on one or more technology-based innovations, which we will talk about a bit more shortly. IES does not have a preference for the particular learning outcome. It could be a single outcome, such as improved reading, writing, or math, or even credit accumulation. Or it could be a combination of outcomes. Post-secondary institutions and faculty have been creating and adopting various types of innovations, and researchers have been creating innovations for these users. Some innovations are implemented at the institutional or department level. For example, some universities or colleges have made large investments to redesign how instruction takes place by creating units to design, implement, and improve online course options, such as fully online, hybrid, or blended options for courses or programs of study. Faculty have also been innovating their own classes and programs, building off their experience and leveraging the tools they have on hand. For example, instructors may have innovative ways of using Web 2.0 tools, such as wikis or discussion boards, to get students engaged, give them more practice, or otherwise improve the learning experience. Developers, both those at post-secondary institutions and those outside of the system, have also been creating innovative tools and approaches. Some of these are already being integrated into classes. These innovations include a wide range of things, from interactive tutoring systems and artificial intelligence to e-textbooks. Your center can focus on any innovation, from the large investments to the more classroom-level ones. You'll just want to make a case for why the one or the ones that you've selected are significant. Before moving into what IES hopes the center will achieve, I'd like to mention a few things that make this center different from previous post-secondary centers and from the other centers in this year's RFA. First, there is a strong connection between the focused program of research and the national leadership activities, and this is echoed throughout the topic description. In fact, the significance section should help build a case for not only the research plan, but also the leadership activities. Because of this strong connection, this center is allowed to allocate more resources for national leadership activities than is typical. In fact, there's a lower limit on the % you can allocate for the research activities than in other centers. Finally, it's worth noting that unlike previous post-secondary centers, this center must focus on credit-bearing courses and cannot focus exclusively on developmental education. Now that we have outlined some of the things that make this center special, let's go through some of the requirements and expectations for the center. Like all centers, this one will have to conduct a focused program of research, national leadership, capacity building, and outreach activities, and supplemental activities. Combined, these must address the research gaps in what we know about teaching and learning in post-secondary education. Also, like every other center, you must have a plan for sharing your data. For post-secondary innovations, especially those that use technology, there is a need for non-proprietary data to be available to others so that they can form theories about what works for whom and under what conditions. The Post-Secondary Center's focused program of research will address fundamental questions about innovations that may improve post-secondary learning outcomes and the conditions under which they may be most beneficial and for whom. The goal of this work is twofold. First, IES hopes this research will help the community of post-secondary stakeholders, including researchers, developers, administrators, and instructors, better understand the opportunities for and the benefits and limitations of technology-supported instructional innovations. Second, IES hopes this work will lead to improved theories of change, practical guidance, and training materials that various stakeholders can use to strengthen their work. IES does not have a particular research project type in mind. That is, the focused program of research may include exploration, development, evaluation, and/or measurement work, depending on how you envision the problems and the solutions. The important thing will be figuring out the types of questions you want to address and then aligning the correct methods. Ideally, your center's questions will provide answers that could move theory and practice. The center's national leadership, capacity building, and outreach activities should build off of and/or feed into the aforementioned focused program of research and should address the hurdles the field, which includes everyone from faculty through researchers, faces when trying to innovate. IES encourages applicants to consider the following 3 hurdles facing the field and align its activities to addressing these hurdles. First, the field and public may face the lack of clear, objective information about the benefits, costs, and implications of such innovations, and thus not knowing what to do. We call this the information hurdle. Second, administrators and faculty may struggle to choose the most appropriate innovation or innovations to meet their needs for a range of reasons, and they may have difficulty evaluating whether their investments are working as intended. We call this the adoption and implementation hurdle. Finally, there may be a lack of coordination among researchers, developers, and the market. We call this the research to market pipeline hurdle. The center should identify the audiences it intends to focus on and how it could best meet their needs. These strategies may include a range of activities, from social media campaigns to hands-on training. Here are a few examples presented for each hurdle. To address the information hurdle, you could create a website with links and documents, write working papers, journal publications, and briefs, conduct a social media campaign, and present at professional conferences, among other things. To address the adoption and implementation hurdle, you could create toolkits and rubrics, conduct workshops and trainings, or host other activities designed for institutional staff, such as instructional developers and institutional researchers. To address the research to market pipeline hurdle, you could develop research toolkits, host workshops on moving to market, or conduct other training activities, such as training people to use the center's data or give them hands-on experience conducting research. One thing to note is that you must host a yearly convening of IES-funded researchers and developers. We ask that you hold this at the annual PI meeting. The final major set of activities are the supplemental activities, such as meetings or smaller scale studies. These activities will support the focus program of research activities and/or the national leadership and outreach activities. The Postsecondary Center will work cooperatively with IES to select and design these activities in response to policy and practice needs relevant to the center's topic. For this reason, IES does not expect a detailed plan for these supplemental activities in the application, but does expect a budget set aside of 5% of the maximum grant award, $500,000, for them. In your application, you will want to demonstrate that you have the staff and capacity to conduct these activities, and you could provide a few examples of what you might do. Here is a summary slide of the award maximums that you must keep in mind when preparing your proposal. Note that no more than 60% of your budget should go to the focus program of research. Now let's look at how to prepare the narrative section of your proposal. This is the heart of your application and the part reviewers will pay close attention to. When reading the RFA, one of the first things you will encounter in the topic section are the requirements. For your application to go forward to peer review, you must meet the general requirements for an application along with the specific requirements for your topic area. In addition to the requirements, there are additional recommendations in each center topic area to help you write the project narrative. We strongly encourage you to incorporate the recommendations into your project narrative and relevant appendices. IES reviewers use the recommendations to help guide them as they score the applications, and applications that attend to all of the recommendations are more likely to be funded. Where appropriate, the recommendations are aligned with the new IES Standards for Excellence in Education Research, or NCER principles, to ensure that the research is transparent, actionable, and focused on meaningful outcomes that have the potential to dramatically improve education. For your application to be sent forward, you must meet the sample, outcomes, and setting requirements. For this center, the sample requirements are that your research focus on post-secondary learners. Post-secondary students with or at risk for disabilities may be included in your proposed research activities and could be the primary focus. The outcome requirements are that your research must include measures of academic outcomes. You may also include measures of social behavioral competencies and employment and earnings, if these are relevant to the research you are proposing. For post-secondary work, academic outcomes include access to, persistence in, progression through, and completion of post-secondary education, which includes developmental education courses and bridge programs, as well as programs that lead to occupational certificates, associates, or bachelor's degrees, and learning, achievement, and higher order thinking in post-secondary courses. Finally, for this center, the setting requirements are that your research must be conducted in open or broad access post-secondary education settings, which may include online institutions of higher education or with data from such settings. Your research may include other post-secondary education settings as well. In your application, you must submit a proposal narrative. As I mentioned earlier, this is the heart of your application where you set out your plan of research and the justification for it. The peer reviewers focus on this narrative. The center narrative is composed of 5 sections, and we recommend that it be no more than 35 pages. The 5 sections are significance, the research plan, the national leadership and outreach activities, management and institutional resources, and personnel. Each of these will have a set of requirements and a list of recommendations. There are also a series of appendices you will need to submit with your proposal. Some are required, but others are optional. For information about these, you should refer to the RFA and discuss any questions or concerns with me, the program officer. The first section of your center narrative focuses on the significance of your center. In this section, you will discuss the topic and primary purpose of your center, why your center would be important, and what important questions and/or needs your center would address. This is where you're building a case for why your work would be valuable. In this section, you must describe the conceptual framework that will guide the post-secondary center's work, including the national leadership, capacity building, and outreach activities, the innovation or innovations that will be the focus of the research, and the research questions the post-secondary center will address. The second section, the research plan, should link to the significance section and clearly align with it. In this section, you're providing details about the way you would answer the questions or needs you raised in the significance section. You will provide specific details about how you would conduct this work, including things such as setting sample methods, measures, analysis plan, and other elements that you will use. You must describe the characteristics of your sample, research design and methods for each proposed study, power analyses for each study, the cost analysis plan for implementing the innovation or innovations the post-secondary center is focusing on, and data analysis plans for each study. In the third section, when you discuss leadership and outreach activities, you should make sure to discuss the audiences you intend to reach and how you will reach them. Be sure to align these activities with the requirements and recommendations within the post-secondary center topic. In this section, you must describe how you will disseminate what the post-secondary center is learning to technical and non-technical audiences, build capacity to leverage teaching and learning technologies, and improve the pipelines connecting research, development, and the post-secondary market, including plans for a yearly convening with IES-funded researchers and developers. In the fourth section, the Management and Institutional Resources area, you should describe plans and procedures for overall management of the center and its activities, and demonstrate that you have the capacity to conduct the supplemental activities and leadership and outreach. You will want to make it clear that you have people and resources available to do the work you have discussed in the previous sections. If you plan to work in schools or other education delivery settings in the first year, you must include a letter of agreement from the education organization or organizations. If the developer or distributor of a program or intervention is working as part of or with the center, describe their role and how you will maintain objectivity. In this section, you must describe the organizational structure of the center, plans and procedures for the overall management of the center, and resources to conduct the work of the center. The final section is the personnel section. Here you should describe the key personnel at your institution, and if applicable, at other sub-award institutions. You should describe their training, experience, and role, and their time on the project, so it is clear that they will be committing sufficient time to the project. This is where you demonstrate your overall team's expertise in the relevant content areas or your team's methodological and dissemination expertise. So what are your next steps? As mentioned earlier, you should carefully read the full RFA. This webinar only includes highlights. This year, we have a separate application submission guide. Since it is now a separate document from the RFA, you will need to access and download it separately. Read it carefully, as there are many instructions that will help you submit your application correctly and on time. You may need to set up accounts ahead of the deadline, so don't wait until the last minute. This slide includes important dates for 84.305C, the R&D Center competition. Applications must be received at grants.gov no later than September 26, 2019 at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. Letters of intent are due on July 11, 2019, and the application package will be posted on grants.gov on July 11 as well. The possible start dates for the award are between July 1st, 2020 and September 1st, 2020. We ask that you submit an LOI. This is a non-binding document, and we use it to determine the types of reviewers we may need and other logistical concerns. Also, I will respond to all LOIs I receive, so it's a nice way to make sure you're on my email list. There are a few other things I want to leave you with before we finish this webinar. I suggest you review some of the other center grants so that you can get a sense of their size and scope, keeping in mind that this center will be different from previous ones. Our abstracts are fairly detailed, so they will give you a good sense of the quality and type of grant that might get typically funded by IES. IES will also post on-demand webinars that you can access at your convenience, covering a wide range of topics, including a grant writing workshop or webinars about specific funding competitions. Those will be posted in the coming weeks. I especially recommend the Basic Overview webinar. We also have a Resources for Researchers page with grant information for you, including methodological resources to assist in preparing an IES research grant application, videos from past IES training institutes, information about available data sets and tools, among other things. The best way to develop a competitive application is to discuss your idea with and receive feedback from a program officer. My email is listed here on the slide. If you have an idea, feel free to email me a synopsis or short questions or set up a time for a call. If you submit an LOI, I will reach out to you. I can even read through sections of or drafts of proposals if I have time. Thank you for coming to this webinar and for considering this opportunity. I look forward to hearing from you.